The summer sun blazed brightly over Metro City Stadium on a Saturday afternoon in July. The championship game between the Metro Tigers and the Valley Hawks had drawn an enormous crowd, filling nearly every seat in the massive venue. The air buzzed with excitement as fans streamed through the entrance gates, their voices creating a symphony of cheerful chaos. Among the thousands of spectators arriving that day was Sarah Wilson, carefully pushing her 8-year-old son Tommy's wheelchair. Tommy was a special child, born with a rare muscular condition that limited his mobility. Despite his physical challenges, his love for baseball shone brightly in his deep brown eyes, which sparkled with anticipation as they approached the stadium entrance. "Your tickets, please," the entrance attendant said with a warm smile, noticing Tommy's Metro Tigers cap and the team jersey he proudly wore. Sarah handed over their tickets, and the attendant directed them toward the general seating area. As they made their way through the crowded concourse, the smell of hot dogs, popcorn, and roasted peanuts filled the air. Tommy's nose twitched with delight, and Sarah couldn't help but smile at her son's excitement. This was their first live baseball game together, a birthday gift that Tommy had been looking forward to for weeks. Finding their section proved more challenging than Sarah had anticipated. The wheelchair made it difficult to navigate through the narrow aisles, and many people seemed too caught up in their own conversations to notice them struggling. After several minutes of careful maneuvering, they finally reached their designated area in Section 103, Row K. The seats were located in the middle of a long row, and Sarah's heart sank as she realized the accessibility challenges they would face. The space was tight, and the people already seated seemed reluctant to move. An elderly couple finally noticed their predicament and stood up, encouraging others to make way for Tommy's wheelchair. "Thank you," Sarah said gratefully, positioning Tommy's wheelchair in a spot that seemed to offer the best view of the field. Tommy's face lit up as he took in the magnificent sight before him, the perfectly manicured green grass, the pristine white baselines, and players warming up on the field. The stadium gradually filled to capacity as game time approached. The atmosphere grew more electric with each passing minute. The jumbo screen displayed exciting highlights from previous games, and the stadium speakers blasted upbeat music that had many fans dancing in their seats. Tommy watched everything with wide-eyed wonder, taking mental pictures of every detail. He had only seen baseball games on television before, and the real-life experience was proving to be far more magical. The sheer size of the stadium, the vibrant colors, and the energy of the crowd overwhelmed his senses in the best possible way. As the teams took their positions for the start of the game, people around them began to stand up in anticipation. This was when the first hint of trouble appeared. Tommy's wheelchair position, which had seemed adequate earlier, now left him staring at the backs of standing spectators. His view of the field disappeared completely. "Mom, I can't see anything," Tommy said quietly, trying to hide his disappointment. Sarah attempted to adjust his wheelchair. The crowded conditions gave her little room to maneuver. She could see the excitement draining from her son's face, replaced by a look of resignation that broke her heart. Several people nearby noticed their struggle but seemed unsure how to help. Sarah considered asking if they could move to a different location, but the stadium was packed to capacity, and finding another spot seemed impossible. She felt tears welling up in her eyes as she watched her son's dream day turning into a disappointment. Unknown to Sarah and Tommy, their situation had caught the attention of someone else in the stadium. Officer Michael James, a security guard with 15 years of experience at Metro Stadium, had been observing them from his post near Section 103. As he watched the scene unfold, memories of his own daughter's similar struggles before her surgery flooded his mind. His eyes focused on Tommy's disappointed face, and in that moment, he made a decision that would change not only Tommy's day but the atmosphere of the entire stadium. This simple beginning would soon transform into a heartwarming moment that nobody in attendance would ever forget. The game was entering its second inning, and Tommy's frustration grew with each passing minute. Every time something exciting happened on the field, the crowd would jump to their feet, completely blocking his view. He could hear the crack of the bat and the roar of the crowd, but all he could see were the backs of people's shirts and jackets. Sarah noticed her son's fingers gripping his wheelchair's armrests tightly, a sign she recognized as his way of dealing with disappointment. She had saved for 3 months to buy these tickets, working extra shifts at the diner to give Tommy his dream birthday present. Now, watching him struggle to enjoy the experience was breaking her heart. "Maybe we can try moving to the side a little," Sarah suggested, though she knew the crowded conditions made this nearly impossible. She attempted to shift Tommy's wheelchair, but the movement only resulted in bumping into the people next to them, who shot annoyed glances in their direction. Tommy tried to be brave, but his lower lip trembled slightly. "It's okay, Mom," he said softly, though his voice carried a weight that no 8-year-old's voice should carry. "Maybe we can just listen to the game." His attempt to hide his disappointment only made the situation more heartbreaking. A particularly exciting play caused another surge of movement in the crowd. The sound of the bat connecting with the ball echoed through the stadium, followed by thunderous cheering. Tommy could only imagine what had happened as everyone around him leaped to their feet once again. This time, he couldn't hold back his emotions. "I just wanted to see one game," he whispered, a tear rolling down his cheek. "Just one real baseball game." Sarah knelt beside his wheelchair, trying to comfort him while fighting back her own tears. Several people nearby noticed the scene, and uncomfortable glances were exchanged, but no one seemed to know how to help. An older man in front of them turned around, his face softening when he saw Tommy's distress. He tried to describe the play that had just happened, explaining how the Tigers' star player had hit a double, bringing in 2 runs. Tommy nodded politely, but the second-hand description only seemed to emphasize what he was missing. The stadium's energy continued to build as the game progressed, but for Tommy and Sarah, it felt like they were trapped in their own bubble of disappointment. The cheers and excitement around them only amplified their sense of isolation. Tommy's usually bright eyes had dulled, and he had stopped asking questions about the game. Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out the baseball glove they had brought, hoping to catch a foul ball. The sight of it now seemed to mock their situation. They couldn't even see where foul balls might come from, let alone catch one. Tommy glanced at the glove and then looked away quickly, his shoulders slumping further. A vendor passed by, calling out, "Hot dogs! Get your hot dogs here!" The smell wafted through their section, but Tommy shook his head when Sarah offered to buy him one. The enthusiasm he had shown earlier for stadium snacks had vanished completely. His dream day was crumbling around him, and even the promise of his favorite ballpark treats couldn't lift his spirits. The situation grew even more challenging when a group of excited fans decided to start doing the wave. As it approached their section, everyone would stand up and sit down in sequence, creating a ripple effect through the crowd. Each time the wave passed through, Tommy found himself staring at a wall of bodies, completely cut off from the game he had so desperately wanted to see. Sarah looked around desperately for help, considering whether they should just leave early. The thought of giving up made her chest tighten. They had waited so long for this day. Tommy had talked about nothing else for weeks, even sleeping in his Tigers jersey the night before. Now, watching his excitement turn to resignation was almost unbearable. What neither of them realized was that their situation had caught the attention of someone who understood their struggle all too well. Officer Michael James had been watching the scene unfold, and his mind was already working on a solution that would soon transform this moment of disappointment into something extraordinary. As the crowd continued to rise and fall with the action of the game, Officer James began making his way toward them, carrying with him a plan that would not only save Tommy's special day, but create a moment that would touch the hearts of everyone in attendance. Officer Michael James had been working security at Metro Stadium for 15 years, and in all that time, few sights had touched his heart like the struggling boy in the wheelchair. As he watched Tommy's disappointment grow, memories of his own daughter Rachel flooded back. Before her corrective surgery 3 years ago, she had faced similar challenges at public events. Making his way through the crowded aisle, Officer James straightened his navy blue uniform and adjusted his badge. His tall frame and kind face made him an approachable figure, despite his official role. Several regular attendees nodded in recognition as he passed, having seen him patrol this section many times before. "Excuse me, folks," he said gently, approaching Tommy and Sarah. His voice carried a warmth that immediately put them at ease. "I couldn't help but notice you're having some trouble seeing the game." He knelt down to Tommy's eye level, something he had learned from his experiences with Rachel. Sarah looked up at the officer, hope flickering in her tired eyes. "Yes, we are," she admitted. "It's Tommy's first game," and her voice trailed off as she gestured helplessly at the standing crowd around them. Officer James smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Tommy, huh? That's a good baseball name." He noticed the boy's Tigers jersey and baseball glove. "I see you're a real fan. Who's your favorite player?" Tommy's face brightened slightly at the question. Marcus Rodriguez, he answered softly. He hit 30 home runs last season. Good choice. Officer James nodded approvingly. You know, I think I might have a solution to help you see Marcus and the rest of the team better. He paused, looking thoughtful. But I'll need to check with my supervisor first. Would you mind waiting here for just a moment? Sarah watched as Officer James spoke quietly into his radio, his expression serious but optimistic. A few minutes later, his radio crackled with a response, and a smile spread across his face. Well, Tommy, he said, returning to them, how would you like a special view of the game? His eyes twinkled with the knowledge of what he had planned. Before Tommy could respond, Officer James was already explaining to Sarah about a raised platform near the security station. It was typically reserved for security personnel, but with his supervisor's approval, they could make an exception today. It's completely safe, he assured Sarah, noting her concerned expression. The platform is stable and has railings. Plus, I'll be right there the whole time. He glanced at his watch. We're about to start the third inning. Perfect timing for a change of scenery. Tommy's eyes widened with renewed hope, but he looked to his mother for approval. Sarah studied Officer James's sincere face and kind eyes, then nodded slowly. As Officer James began to clear a path through the crowd, several spectators who had witnessed the earlier struggles now moved aside willingly. Some even offered words of encouragement to Tommy as they passed. My daughter Rachel used to have trouble seeing at games too, Officer James shared as they walked, carefully guiding them through the concourse. She's doing much better now, but I never forgot how hard it was for her. Sometimes all anyone needs is a different perspective. They reached the security station, where a sturdy metal platform stood slightly elevated from the regular seating area. It offered a perfect view of the entire field, unobstructed by standing spectators. Other security officers at the station, having heard about the situation through their radios, had already prepared the space. They greeted Tommy with warm smiles and helped Officer James ensure the wheelchair was properly secured. As Tommy took in his new vantage point, his entire face transformed. The disappointment that had clouded his features melted away, replaced by pure joy. He could see everything, the players, the diamond, even the scoreboard, with perfect clarity. Mom, look! Tommy exclaimed, pointing excitedly at the field. I can see Rodriguez warming up in the batting circle. Sarah's eyes welled with tears, but this time they were tears of gratitude. She touched Officer James's arm gently. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what this means to us. Officer James smiled, remembering similar moments with Rachel. Everyone deserves to see the magic of baseball, he said simply, taking his position beside Tommy's wheelchair. Little did he know that his act of kindness was about to create a ripple effect throughout the entire stadium. From his new vantage point on the security platform, Tommy's entire baseball experience transformed. The elevated position not only provided him with a clear view of the game but offered something even more special, a perspective that many regular spectators would envy. Officer James stood beside him, occasionally pointing out interesting details about the game that only someone with 15 years of stadium experience would notice. See how the shortstop is shifting slightly to his left? Officer James explained, gesturing toward the field. That means they're expecting the batter to pull the ball. Tommy absorbed every word, his eyes shining with newfound understanding of the game's subtle strategies. Sarah watched from nearby, amazed at how quickly her son had gone from the brink of tears to bubbling with excitement. Other security officers had brought them complimentary hot dogs and sodas, turning their section into an impromptu VIP area. The crowd around the security platform began to take notice of the special arrangement. Instead of showing irritation at the exception being made, they seemed touched by the scene unfolding before them. Several people smiled warmly at Tommy, and a few even waved when they caught his eye. Mom, Rodriguez is coming up to bat. Tommy's voice carried such pure excitement that several nearby spectators turned to share in his enthusiasm. Officer James grinned, remembering similar moments with his own daughter. As if the baseball gods themselves were smiling upon the moment, Marcus Rodriguez stepped up to the plate. The stadium grew quiet with anticipation. Tommy gripped the arms of his wheelchair, leaning forward slightly. Watch his stance, Officer James said softly. See how he keeps his back foot planted? Tommy nodded, completely absorbed in the moment. The pitcher wound up and delivered the ball. Rodriguez's bat cracked against it with explosive force, sending the baseball soaring toward the outfield. The crowd leaped to their feet. But this time, Tommy didn't miss a thing. From his elevated position, he watched in awe as the ball sailed over the fence for a home run. "I saw it. Mom, I saw the whole thing." Tommy's joy was infectious. Even the normally stoic security officers found themselves cheering along with him. During the brief break between innings, Officer James shared stories about some of the most memorable games he witnessed over the years. He told Tommy about rain delays that turned into dance parties, about unlikely comebacks, and about the time a squirrel ran across the field and became the team's unofficial mascot. "You know what makes baseball special, Tommy?" Officer James asked, adjusting his uniform cap. "It's not just about the game. It's about moments like this, when everyone comes together." A foul ball suddenly arsed toward their section. Without missing a beat, Officer James caught it smoothly in his left hand. The crowd around them applauded, but their cheers turned to touched smiles as the officer immediately handed the ball to Tommy. "Every real baseball fan should have a game ball," he said with a wink. Tommy cradled the ball in his hands as if it were made of gold, his fingers tracing over the stitches with reverence. Sarah noticed how other children in the nearby seats were watching the scene with interest rather than jealousy. A few parents could be heard quietly explaining to their kids about kindness and consideration for others. The Tigers' mascot, having heard about the special situation through the stadium staff, made his way to their platform between innings. He posed for photos with Tommy and performed a silly dance that had everyone laughing. As the game progressed, something remarkable began to happen. The security platform, typically a purely functional space, had transformed into a center of joy and community. Other stadium staff members found reasons to pass by, each adding their own small contribution to Tommy's experience. A team roaster here, a bag of peanuts there. What had started as Officer James's simple solution to help one child see the game had evolved into something much more meaningful. The platform had become a symbol of how small acts of kindness could change everything. Tommy sat straighter in his wheelchair now, his earlier frustration completely forgotten. He wasn't just watching the game anymore. He was part of it, experiencing baseball exactly as it was meant to be experienced. With clear views, good company, and the kind of joy that only comes from dreams being fulfilled in unexpected ways. Little did anyone know that the most touching part of this impromptu arrangement was yet to come, as the crowd around them was about to react in a way that would make this ordinary baseball game extraordinary. The game entered the seventh inning, and Tommy's excitement showed no signs of diminishing. His initial joy at being able to see the game had transformed into something even more magical. From his spot on the security platform, he had become more than just a spectator. He had become part of the stadium's living energy. Officer James noticed how Tommy's running commentary about the game had gradually drawn the attention of nearby fans. People who had come to the stadium as strangers were now turning to the young boy in the wheelchair to share their reactions to exciting plays. His pure enthusiasm for baseball was contagious. "Look at that double play," Tommy exclaimed, his voice carrying clearly across the section. His understanding of the game, fueled by Officer James's patient explanations, impressed even the most seasoned fans around them. Sarah watched in amazement as her usually shy son blossomed in this unexpected spotlight. The same child who had been fighting back tears an hour ago was now confidently discussing batting averages with adults twice his age. His knowledge of baseball statistics, previously shared only in the quiet of their home, now had an appreciative audience. During the seventh inning stretch, something unexpected happened. As "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" began playing through the stadium speakers, Tommy started singing along with particular enthusiasm. His clear, joyful voice carried through the section, causing people nearby to pause and listen. One by one, the crowd around them turned their attention to Tommy. Instead of singing towards the field as usual, they began facing the platform, smiling as they joined in with Tommy's heartfelt rendition. Even the usually reserved business people in their suits found themselves swaying to the rhythm of Tommy's enthusiasm. Officer James, still standing protectively near Tommy's wheelchair, noticed something remarkable happening in the stands. People were pulling out their phones, not to take calls or check messages, but to capture this spontaneous moment of pure joy. The sight of a young boy in a wheelchair, singing his heart out at his first baseball game, surrounded by supportive strangers, was something worth remembering. As the song ended, the crowd's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Instead of the usual scattered applause that followed the seventh inning stretch, a wave of genuine, heartfelt clapping spread through the section. People weren't just clapping for the song, they were clapping for Tommy, for Officer James's kindness, and for the unexpected community that had formed around this simple platform. Several fans wiped tears from their eyes, moved by the pure authenticity of the moment. A grandfather in the row below was overheard explaining to his grandson, "That, son, is what baseball is really about, bringing people together." The Tigers' dugout had noticed the commotion, and even some of the players were looking over with interest. Marcus Rodriguez, Tommy's favorite player, tipped his cap in their direction, causing Tommy to beam with pride. Sarah, who had been recording the whole scene on her phone, finally lowered it with trembling hands. "I never thought," she whispered to Officer James, "that his first baseball game would turn out like this." The stadium's camera crew, having caught wind of the special moment, turned one of their cameras toward the platform. Suddenly, Tommy's joyful face appeared on the giant screen, causing a ripple of recognition and applause to spread through the entire stadium. Tommy's reaction to seeing himself on the big screen was priceless. His eyes widened in surprise, and his smile grew even broader. He gave a small, shy wave that the camera caught perfectly, prompting an "awe" from the crowd that echoed through the stadium. The TV commentators in their booth above began sharing Tommy's story with their viewers, describing how a security guard's act of kindness had transformed a potentially disappointing day into an unforgettable experience. Their words reached thousands of homes, spreading the warmth of this moment far beyond the stadium walls. As the eighth inning began, Tommy remained the center of attention, but in the most natural and heartwarming way. He had become the section's unofficial good luck charm, with fans playfully attributing the Tigers' good plays to his presence on the platform. What had started as Officer James's simple solution to help one child see the game had evolved into something much more significant. A reminder of humanity's capacity for kindness and the way sports can bring out the best in people. The tears in people's eyes weren't just about baseball anymore. They were about witnessing a perfect moment of human connection and joy. As the game entered its final stages, the impact of Tommy's presence at the stadium continued to grow in unexpected ways. The applause that had started in their section began spreading like a wave through the entire stadium as more people learned about the heartwarming story unfolding at the security platform. The stadium's social media team had captured the earlier moment when Tommy was singing during the seventh inning stretch, and the video was already being shared widely online. Comments and likes were pouring in from people touched by the simple act of kindness that had transformed one child's experience. A local news reporter, who happened to be covering the game, made her way to the platform. "It's the best day ever," Tommy told the reporter, clutching his foul ball. "Officer James helped me see everything, and now I can watch baseball just like everyone else." The sincerity in his voice touched everyone within earshot. The stadium's management team took notice too. During the eighth inning, the general manager personally visited the platform. After witnessing the scene and talking with Officer James, he made an unexpected announcement that brought fresh tears to Sarah's eyes. "We want to make this platform permanently accessible for children with special needs during all future games," the manager declared. "And we'd like Tommy to be our first official junior baseball ambassador, helping us make the stadium more welcoming for everyone." The news spread quickly through the crowd. Parents of other children with disabilities began approaching the security station, asking about the new accessibility initiative. Many shared their own stories of struggling to enjoy games with their children and how this simple solution could change everything. Officer James found himself surrounded by fellow security guards who wanted to learn more about his approach. His years of experience dealing with his daughter's similar challenges had given him insights that could help train other staff members to be more aware and proactive. The Tigers' team manager sent over a baseball signed by the entire team, with a special message from Marcus Rodriguez. "To Tommy, thanks for showing us what being a true fan means. Keep spreading the joy of baseball." As the ninth inning approached, something remarkable happened in the stands. People who had been strangers 3 hours ago were now exchanging contact information, planning to meet at future games, and discussing ways to support the stadium's new accessibility initiatives. A group of season ticket holders spontaneously started a collection to sponsor game tickets for other children with disabilities. Within minutes, they had enough pledges to cover dozens of future games. The stadium's architect, who happened to be attending the game, was seen taking notes and making sketches, inspired to incorporate more accessible viewing areas into future renovation plans. What had started as one security guard's compassionate solution was evolving into a movement for change. Social media continued to light up with the story. Hashtag Tommy's View began trending locally, with fans sharing their own photos and videos of the heartwarming scene. Messages of support poured in from other baseball stadiums across the country, many pledging to explore similar accessibility improvements. Local businesses near the stadium started calling in, offering to sponsor equipment and resources for the new accessible seating area. A medical supply company volunteered to provide specialized seating options, while a local construction firm offered to help modify the platform permanently. Parents in the crowd were using Tommy's story as a teaching moment for their own children, explaining the importance of kindness, inclusion, and thinking creatively to solve problems. The lesson was made more powerful by the real-time example unfolding before their eyes. Even the most hardened sports fans found themselves moved by the scene. A group of tough-looking men with painted faces and team jerseys were observed wiping tears from their eyes as they watched Tommy celebrate another Tigers hit with uninhibited joy. The stadium announcer's voice carried extra warmth as he shared updates about the game, occasionally referencing our friend Tommy in section 103 and the magic happening at the security platform. His words reinforced the sense that everyone was part of something special. As the game entered its final moments, it was clear that this ordinary baseball game had become extraordinary. The ripple effect of Officer James's simple act of kindness had transformed not just one child's experience, but potentially the future of baseball attendance for countless others. The crowd's energy had shifted from merely watching a game to being part of a community, united by compassion and the shared joy of making a difference in one young fan's life. And this was just the beginning of the changes to come. The Tigers won the game that day, but everyone in the stadium knew they had witnessed something far more significant than a baseball victory. As the crowds began to disperse, Tommy's platform remained a center of activity and emotion. Officer James stood proudly beside Tommy's wheelchair as various people stopped by to say goodbye. Stadium officials had already begun discussing plans to name the newly permanent accessible viewing area Tommy's Corner. The simple platform that had started as a temporary solution would now become a lasting symbol of inclusion. "You know, Tommy," Officer James said, kneeling beside the boy's wheelchair, "I've worked at this stadium for 15 years, but this is the most special day I've ever had here." His voice carried the warmth of genuine emotion as he reached into his pocket and pulled out an official security badge with Tommy's name on it. "The manager asked me to give you this. You're now our honorary junior security officer." Sarah watched as her son's eyes filled with wonder at the sight of the badge. The day had brought so many unexpected gifts, not just physical ones like the signed baseball and team merchandise, but more importantly, the gift of belonging and acceptance. Local news crews captured the moment as Tommy and Officer James posed for one final photo together. The image would later appear on the front page of the city newspaper, becoming a symbol of how small acts of kindness could spark meaningful change. In the weeks that followed, Tommy's story inspired a wave of positive changes across the baseball community. Other stadiums began implementing similar accessible viewing areas, and Officer James was invited to consult on best practices for making sporting events more inclusive. The Tigers' management made Tommy their official accessibility ambassador, inviting him to attend special events and help evaluate new initiatives to make the stadium more welcoming for all fans. His perspective as both a passionate baseball fan and someone with physical challenges proved invaluable. Sarah noticed profound changes in her son after that memorable day. Tommy's confidence grew, and he began speaking up more about accessibility issues at his school and in their community. His experience had shown him that positive change was possible, and his voice mattered. Officer James and Tommy developed a special friendship. The security guard made sure to check on his buddy whenever Tommy attended games, sharing insights about baseball and life. Their bond reminded everyone that the best relationships often start with a simple act of kindness. The platform itself became a symbol of hope. Other children with disabilities who came to watch games from Tommy's Corner found not just a better view, but a sense of community. Parents shared stories of their children feeling truly included at a sporting event for the first time. The stadium's new accessibility program, inspired by that single day, grew to include sensory-friendly areas, specialized seating options, and trained staff members dedicated to ensuring all fans could enjoy the game comfortably. Tommy's experience had opened eyes and hearts to possibilities that had always been there but needed someone to take the first step. 1 year later, on the anniversary of that special day, the stadium held Inclusion Day. Tommy threw out the first pitch, with Officer James catching behind the plate. The crowd's standing ovation wasn't just for them, but for the positive changes their story had inspired. Sarah often reflected on how a day that had started with tears of frustration had transformed into something so powerful. Sometimes, she would tell people who asked about the story, the most beautiful moments come from the hardest challenges. The baseball community learned valuable lessons that day. They learned that true sportsmanship extends beyond the field, that kindness has the power to transform lives, and that everyone deserves a chance to experience the joy of the game. As for Tommy, he continued to attend games from his special spot, sharing his love of baseball with everyone he met. His infectious enthusiasm and bright smile reminded people that sports had the power to bring out the best in humanity. The story of the security guard who helped a disabled child see a baseball game became more than just a heartwarming tale. It became a catalyst for change, a reminder of human kindness, and proof that sometimes the most important victories happen off the field. Years later, when people would ask Officer James about that day, he would simply smile and say, "Sometimes all it takes is seeing things from a different perspective." And in those words lay the simple truth that had transformed not just a baseball game, but an entire community's understanding of what it meant to truly include everyone in America's favorite pastime.